What do you know about Latvia? It's a small European country. It's known for the fact that Americans don't know anything about it. There's a basketball player whose name nobody can pronounce.
Kristaps Porzingis.
And there's an incredibly original joke about all our names ending with an S. But Let's do have a very rich culture, especially when it comes down to lyricism. And when it comes down to films, well, there were some really good cheap films made back in the Soviet era, and then for like 20 years the industry was completely dead. Now thanks to subsidies though, it's back. And most of the time it's good. And sometimes it's pretentious gibberish, but most of the time it's good. Viesturs Kairišs is considered the best director, but is he? Well, let's look at the newest production that's already a year old, because I'm slow as an Estonian. Pilsēta pie upes, or Piļsāta pie upis, is apparently only the second Latgalian film. It's highly debated whether the stung is an actual language or just a dialect of the Latvian language. Either way, this isn't really a gimmick. It's very cleverly used to punctuate the changing landscape of the small Eastern European country. The plot follows a sign painter who forms an unlikely friendship with his Jewish ex's father during the very complicated events of the early Second World War, a period of time that's very well known to Latvian cinema but not so much abroad. Most foreign cinema focuses on the later stages of the war and the big battles on the Western Front, not so much the everyday lives of the people who get caught in the crossfire of two evil forces. This period has been covered a lot of times in Latvian literature, most notably the pseudo-autobiography Bill, which was adapted rather poorly recently, and the heavy biographical drama Dāvsnakts, which was adapted rather well recently. Pilsēta pie upes is somewhat in the middle of both films in terms of the tone, as it does not shy away from the very complicated and hard to understand from the modern perspective events of this horrid period of time, but at the same time it finds a very dark sense of humor about the whole event. We see a bust of Latvian President Ulman is being changed to a very similar bust of Stalin, followed soon enough by Hitler, knowing very well that Stalin will be put back in his place. So too we see the painter repainting and repainting the same street signs over and over and over again, first in Latgalian, then Latvian, then Russian, then Latvian, then German again, and we laugh uncomfortably, knowing very well what this implies. So even though the subject matter is all too familiar to the mostly Latvian audience, the clever twist of the main character's occupation made it very interesting to me. We see through his eyes first the persecution of Latvians by the communists and the blame being purposely shifted to the Jews by the invading German propaganda that followed, which obviously leads to the Jewish father. Well, you figure out what happens to him. We see the main character's newly wedded wife struggling with her humanitarian instinct to protect her husband's ex from the Germans, and the understanding nature of wanting to live a normal life without said ex standing in the middle of them. This is all very well done, and all the characters are morally grey, as they're supposed to be. The story is written very well, all the actors do a good job, and the cinematography is done surprisingly well. The director is known for his gimmicky cinematography. His previous film is in black and white, and this one has tons of Dutch angles. Did you know that Dutch angles aren't even Dutch? They're German. Americans just don't know the difference between the Dutch and the Deutsch. Somehow that doesn't surprise me. Normally I'm not a big fan of Deutsch angles, as I find them very distracting, but here they are combined with camera tilts, giving the film a very claustrophobic feel, even in exterior scenes, because we rarely see the sky. When we see a drinking glass is put on a table that's tilted downwards, we can't help but feel like it's gonna fall. And when we see a boat whose name has changed 5 times being motored upriver, we can't help but feel like it's a struggle for it to go against the stream. There are some background gags that some foreigners might not catch, and the acting, like in all films made by small countries, is very theatrical, since there aren't really anybody who specializes in movie acting. This may be a problem to some who aren't used to that, but overall, generally I recommend it to anyone who's interested in something new. But what I recommend more than that is to check out my other videos, subscribe, follow me on Twitter. Thanks!